Ericka, the border is a mess.
It
So
is.
now you're a
Yes, it
Vermonster,
is.
right? You're a former Vermonster,
Yes, sir.
right?
That's correct.
So there's now, and you can look it up, there is now this concern in the North Country in Vermont. So Alburgh, Swanton, right?
Hmm. All the
Highgate,
border
Highgate
towns.
Center, all the
Yep.
border towns. So they're now coming
And
over
that's
the
where I grew
border
up too. I
in
grew up in
in
St.
in
Albans.
in droves. And I go to
Yep.
Montreal a lot. So hang on, you know how I love it? I love this. So they're now saying in Swanton, Vermont, I'm sorry, I quoted it wrong in the monologue. Customs and Border Patrol says there's been a 240% spike from 2022 to 2023 of people crossing the border. That's what they're catching.
And that's
now
just
again,
what they're catching. Yeah.
that's just what they're catching. So much so that a lot of the residents there are now carrying firearms
Yes. That's
to
what
protect themselves.
I actually brought this up in my congressional campaign because it was not being addressed, right? We only ever talk about the southern border, but we've got friends who have like wildlife cams on their property, right, for hunting and trapping and doing things like that. And they're seeing people, many of them Chinese nationals, coming across the border at night. This is not like, oh, I'm coming to seek asylum and I'm going to come to the border. No, these are people just straight up crossing the border.
They're actually, wait a minute. They're not crossing the border like they're going through a checkpoint in the northern border. And folks, let's be clear. The U.S.-Canadian border is the longest land border in the world, right? We're only talking about this little part of sort of Vermont and New Hampshire, but there's a whole landmass where they can be coming across at different points. And someone who lived in Montreal in the 80s and someone who used to cross the border at checkpoints where there weren't people sometimes.
Yeah.
There's plenty of places. And if you're going through the woods, Ericka, there's no border. It's not like they're crossing a border like it's the Phantom Toll Booth, right?
No.
I mean, they're crossing a border where there's nobody there.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I heard it from Border Patrol in Vermont that it's actually up over 1,000%. So I don't know where the 240 number came from. I'm certain that's the government trying to hide information, but that was from an actual. Now, granted, that was last year. So my information is maybe 12 months old, but an actual Border Patrol agent said that border crossings he believed were up about 1,000% across the northern border, just based on reports from, again, from regular citizens who just have wildlife cameras in their backyards. So.
Right. And by the way, to put this in perspective, the U.S.-Canadian border is 3 times as long as the U.S.-Mexican border.
Yeah.
Right. Longest land border in the world. Right.
Yep.
But and what they're saying is this is such a system. And at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and like Alburgh or other places right over the border, all these cars line up at sort of these convenience, rest stops with they have a convenience store. Maybe it's Maplewood Farms, whatever it is.
Yep.
And they have a gas station. They come in, they get a coffee, they wait, they have out-of-state plates. And then people walk through the woods, load up the cars and they leave.
Yep. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing they're seeing in Del Rio and McAllen and all of the southern border. It always blew my mind, was just flabbergasting that no one ever talks about the northern border, as if we don't know. As if we don't know that there was a sex trafficking, a human trafficking ring being run out of a massage parlor in South Burlington, Vermont. Like, these things are happening, and yet somehow it's not reported in the news. I would tell people that happened. No one had ever heard about it, but it did in I think it was 2020 or 21.
Except the patrons who were or the people who were patronizing the establishment, of course.
Correct. Which you didn't hear about those people either.
So here's the other thing. These guys are so well organized. There is a small time period that no one comes across the northern border. You want to know what it is?
What? Winter.
No, it's the 16-day rifle hunting season.
Because people don't.
So the guy says, Cuban smugglers seem to be so well informed to what's happening on both sides of the border. He said, for instance, There is zero migrant activity during the region's 16-day rifle hunting season when the woods are filled with marksmen toting high-powered long guns equipped with precision scopes. I mean, it's not funny. I shouldn't be laughing, but if their granularity of knowledge is, first, well, let's back up. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
First of all, high-powered rifles with scopes prevent people from crossing the border. Gee, I wonder if we should apply the same technique on the southern border with the same results.
It's almost like armed people are a deterrent to illegal immigration.
Or other illegal activities. I'm shocked, right? So you sit here and right. And then they talk about a parade of getaway vehicles, the out-of-state plates. So you sit there and folks, if you think that this stuff is just happening on the southern border, you're wrong. If this isn't qualify as an invasion, well, of course, then again, since we no longer control the dictionary definitions, I guess based on the new definitions, it's not an invasion because I don't know. Help me here, Ericka. I mean, it just.
Well, Robert, what do? You've said it. How do you manipulate the system? How do you manipulate the population? Language. It's why national language is such an important conversation, and you're not allowed to have it.
Right. Right. And jumping from that part of the illegal immigration border debate, as I mentioned in the monologue, the largest nationality now crossing the border, according to the government, by the way. So if the government's reporting it, you know that it's got to be worse than they're talking about, but are Chinese nationals. And they're coming. So apparently now they're picking which part of the border. So obviously California has a large Asian population, as does the Northwest and Washington State, New York City. But they're basically saying, and this is a former border control guy, but basically, and they have all these images of Chinese nationals. The guy basically says, this is one of the largest of Chinese nationals I've ever come across in the last 2 weeks. So, and then you get Representative Tony Gonzalez, who said, look, they're coming because they want
That's right.
They want to blend in. But the point to understand in all of this is these aren't just people from Mexico coming in. Then they were people from further down in Central America and South America. Now you've got Africa,
all over
Chinese nationals. You don't think there's some Islamic fundamentalists coming in here too?
Oh, you know it. Oh, you
right?
know it. When you see streams of people like this, for those of you who are listening and aren't seeing the video, we're showing a group of folks crossing where they've removed the border buoys that Governor Abbott put down. I mean, there's, at least 50, 75, 100 people just in this one group. Who knows? How do you figure? The cartels do not care. They will traffic any of you. They don't care what color your skin is or where you're from, as long as you've got money. So we're just encouraging this. We're encouraging the cartel. Literally, the Biden administration is enriching human trafficking cartels.
Do you remember during the Obama years, the gun running into Mexico, Fast and Furious?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, you have to wonder what these, I mean, how stupid can we be? Because the one thing that has always saved America during all the wars that have happened is we were geographically isolated. Right. But at this point, I mean, the story of the Trojan horse has nothing on this border invasion that's going on here, both north and south. We're so far, we're not seeing east to west, meaning from the waters, but who knows? Right. And here's the other thing. You see what Governor Abbott put out? We talked about, because I want to segue, because Governor Abbott did an op-ed, and I want to say it was the New York Times, might have been the Wall Street Journal, I forget, and basically said what we have been saying all along, which is Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution gives the states the right to defend their borders with their militia. Now, when they passed it back in 1787, it was about Virginia's borders with smugglers across the border. But here's what Article, let me make sure I got the Article 1, Section 10, basically says that they can called forth to suppress smugglers, and written by, and again, I'm trying to scrap here real quick, right? So you have James Madison, who wrote it, who clearly said at the time that This is what it was there for. It clearly states that states can use militia when they find it necessary to respond to an invasion or an imminent danger. And he goes on to cite other things, including, because you talked about business, the fentanyl that's coming across the border. Right? Forget about the human smuggling, which is bad enough. Forget about the invasion of the country. And do you have terrorists that are coming in here? And we all know about they've caught X amount. The question is not who you caught, but who you haven't. But then there's the toll on our young people for the fentanyl coming across the border.
Yeah.
And don't believe all that crap you hear on like The View and all those other, knuckleheads who have their head up their posterior, right, on all of this stuff, because I know I'm cleaning it up. Can we do the Facebook Live after hours thing? Because much more colorful, right? But they're saying, well, it's individual consumers that are bringing over the fentanyl. That is a crock of. These are mules, right? People that are stocked up with fentanyl to bring them across the border because it's big business. Fentanyl is the #1 killer of the young people in this country from 18 to 45 is fentanyl. There is a battle going on, and our youth are being decimated. By the way, if you're worried about fighting the military, then take out the young people who would sign up for the military. That's part of what this is by China, right? And the others who wish us harm. So I know I'm ranting here. So jump in and save me from myself, will you please?
It's hard not to rant, Robert. And some of our listeners are ranting in the comments section too. Ken Sullivan says Biden and his administration have made the cartels more wealthy and dangerous than ever before. I mean, it's the reason why we're seeing across the country in poll after poll that the border issue is Americans' #1 issue in the presidential election this year.
And by the way, I don't know if you had time to tee up that video, but there was a video I sent you guys. I wanted to pull up about New York City. So this is, folks, pull up this video. This is what happens when you have unchecked immigration, and now it's going to all the cities. Good, not good that it's happening, but good that they understand what's at stake here. Play the video.
Yeah. And we won't be able to talk over it, Robert. So I'm going to play it. I'll play like 30 seconds of it so people can get an idea of what's going on. And then we'll. Oh, I guess we can unmute ourselves and talk over it. So you guys, this is a migrant shelter in New York City. They're trying to arrest a migrant. Can you Robert, you can unmute yourself. So this goes on for some time. This is a 3.5-minute video. And can we skip around? The point is, I mean, it goes on. There are people throwing bags at the head. I mean, literally, this one female cop got hit in the head with a bag. She got hit in the head with something else. These people are throwing things at the police officers. They're surrounding them, threatening them at the point where, finally the cops pull out their batons and have to start threatening people back.
This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you get. This is what we get with unchecked illegal immigration across the border. So on the one hand, the Governor Abbott and the other states that are busing them or flying them or whatever they're doing, training them to other blue cities, your sanctuary cities, here, you take them. But this is what happens, right? You defund the police, you don't enforce the laws, and then you expect the police to regulate a mob at the threat to their own safety. Yeah. I mean, we back the blue here. We always have, right? Law and order is the way to go here. But this is what we've put in the way of law enforcement, and they can't even really defend themselves because they'll be brought up on charges. This is, folks, a small snippet. If you search the internet, you see this happening in all sorts of different cities around the country. This is just New York City. Oh, and by the way, now we're giving them debit cards for $1,000 or $10,000 to go buy their food, which is fine. Yeah. we need to be humane, and we need to think this through, but not when you're displacing U.S. citizens whose rights should take precedent over illegal immigrants, unless of course you're in California, where they now put an illegal immigrant on one of the boards. I want to say it was in San Francisco. You sit there and go, I mean, this is like an out-of-body experience. I feel like I'm living in, Orwell's 1984.